Okay, so the second thing we're going to talk about now is the second extension motion practices. Practice? I'm not sure. Basically, Bertrand Brown breaks down the extension motion exercises into the practices and the extension motions themselves. And all the practices are done with the hips and shoulders squared, facing forward. Everything is kind of done in this plane, or that sense. And then the extension motions are all done in that sideways fencing stance, along with all the applications, saber, bayonet, shoveling, or the shelter and trench exercise, as it's called. That is another long story. So again, keeping to this idea that there are kind of three phases which the exercise is broken down into and that you're specifically kind of looking at. So in the position of the soldier, again, this would be analogous to the kind of extension, pushing into the front as usual, kind of digging in, supinating with the outside of the feet, and then pulling in like you're doing a squat, but with no deformation of that basic vertical structure. So out, extend as far as you can go, and then bring it back to neutral under tension. So you get here and you're solid as opposed to a mushy neutral. Now what you want to do is maximize again that first posture, whatever, first phase, supination phase. So I'm extending outwards a little bit as I supinate, just like you did in the back stick when you were raising it. And that gets you out to about here, as far as you can do it. And now what you want to do is you want to rotate over into the pronation phase. So my shoulders are now going, rotating in, pronating, hips also rotating in, pronating on the feet, so pushing into the bit behind big toe, and I've lost it. About here. And then as you bring them closer together, you'll really start to feel some tension. Basically, you never really get to the point where you can touch. And then you go to extension. So you're pronating in, and then as that hip is kind of coming in, when you go into extension, you want to keep that forward pressure on the hip as you extend out. You do not want it to come back like you were doing a squat. That'll seem kind of obvious. Oh, and that's really it. First couple times you just want to do it clean. Find where all the pressures and tensions are. If you stick to thinking about it like the back stick, you should be okay. Ooh. Once you get the isolated version down, then you move on to the continuous, which is basically just going back and forth, but it gets a little tricky. Because you're an extension here, and then you want to fully supinate in that first phase. You want to get to the point where you're fully engaged to that first phase as you come back before you switch over. At some point, kind of around there, definitely before you reach a right angle, you want to switch over to that pronation phase and keep pushing in on that before going to extension. It's a little bit easier than the first extension motions because everything kind of happens in that one fairly horizontal plane. So really you're just keeping things like avoiding rib flare. You can just really lock that down. And concentrate on keeping everything in that tube and just opening or closing the shoulders and the hips. Do it a couple times. Sorry. So first phase brings them up. And again, that action of going from extension back into the first phase kind of raises the arms on their own. Switch to pronation. Extension. Supination. It's really up to you where you want to switch over to pronation. I mean, you can do it almost instantly. Oh God, and you get much more intense. Stretching the way in. That's going to be something you're playing with. And again, at all times, never violate the kind of invisible walls on each side. None of that. None of that. Only this. Trying to keep that centered. And that is the second extension motion practice.